The rural young lady has occasionally inherited from ancient times, wielding amazing medical skills and possessing unparalleled martial arts skills. She can treat illnesses and make a fortune without fail. The young master saved from the roadside turned out to be a prince. The old ladies rescued casually are all the current Empress Dowager. The sick children she adopted were all later crown prince. Keywords of the novel. Doctor leaving the world. Divine Doctor's cute concubine bombs the sky without pop-ups, Doctor leaving the world. Divine Doctor's cute concubine bombs the sky. Download the complete text, Doctor leaving the world. Divine Doctor's cute concubine bombs the sky. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Resurrection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Resurrection. Jolie lay in bed, with her eyes open, staring at the roof without blinking. The beams of the house are tangled with spider webs of various sizes, intertwined and intertwined, with large and small spiders crawling back and forth from time to time. As soon as you turn your head, you can see the wall. On the gray wall, there were colorful paintings, mostly of strange shapes and small animals. Jolie carefully identified them for a while, and one of them looked like a king. The rest can no longer be identified. The walls in many places have peeled off, revealing brown soil. Just looking at it, Jolie knew that with a gentle touch, dirt could fall off. Jolie had just regained consciousness when she accepted the memory of the original owner. Even though the memory is almost digested, everything in front of us is still unbelievable. She is Hua Jolie, born into a family of medical experts. Although not a very influential doctor, she has also achieved some success. From a young age, I have smoked and dyed my eyes. As she grew up, she carried a thick medical backpack, and the Hua family also trained her as a key target. She has made achievements in medicine, not only developing some new drugs, but also obtaining many patents for medical devices. But compared to medical skills, Jolie prefers martial arts. Fortunately, the people at home are not so stubborn in their thinking. As long as they learn medical skills well, they can do whatever they are willing to do in the remaining time. From childhood to adulthood, after years of persistent exercise and study of movements, Jolie has also achieved amazing results in martial arts. I was selected as a special professional team in my sophomore year. After graduating from university, although she appeared to work as a doctor on the surface, she was actually an excellent spy. Jolie remembers clearly that before she fainted, they saw a magical medical book called Fuxi Jing online. They secretly opened an ancient tomb in the middle of the night and obtained this book. At that time, she felt both magical and excited holding that book, jumping with joy. I remember she even kissed that book. Then, she knew nothing, and when she woke up again, she was already lying here. She looked at her hands in surprise. She had already graduated with a PhD and was a girl of 20.7 or 8 years old. How could she have such small hands? As a doctor, my hands are well maintained, but they are covered in chilblains and some areas have already cracked. Quickly, Jolie realized that not only had her figure changed, but also her figure and clothing were different. A bold guess flashed through her mind. Glancing at the sink by the bed. Oh, my goodness! What are these colorful things? Jolie touched her face with water, and this wash made her even uglier. Slim and yellowish complexion, there is a red patch on the left face that spans across the bridge of the nose and reaches directly to the fundus of the eye. Jolie exploded in place, and in her past life, even a little bump on her face would have made her care a lot. Now, with her ugly appearance in this prosperous era, she wished she could die in place again. Speaking of which, where is this? How could she be here? Which dynasty is this? As soon as she finished speaking, there was a sharp pain in her mind, and a memory that didn't belong to her was flipping through the river. She has reached a dynasty that does not even exist in history books, and this village is called Xianxia village. There is a large family in Xianxia village with the surname Wan. The original owner, also known as Jiuli, was the only child in the third house of the Ruan family. When Mr. Ruan was young, he was a scholar who was once admitted as a scholar. Later, he became the village chief of Xianxia village, and this position lasted for many years. Xianxia village was poor, with little oil and water, and his life was tight. In the end, he managed to get by. Mr. Ruan has 3 sons and 2 married daughters under his knee. The eldest son Ruan Changfu and Wang gave birth to 4 daughters and a son. 2 sons, Ruan Changkong and Li Shi, gave birth to 2 sons and a daughter. The first 2 houses have a prosperous population and happy families. At the end of the 3rd year, Ruan Changxiu's journey changed, and Hua Shi's stomach felt like she had been cursed. She only gave birth to 1 daughter, Ruan Jiuli, and never bulged again. Would it be great if Ruan Jiuli were like the children in the first 2 rooms? Not only is he unattractive, but he is also born with dementia. Even if the daughters born to other families are all losers, no one wants Ruan Changxiu's daughter even if she loses money. Slowly, rumors spread in the village that it was Jiuli's life poison, born with evil spirits, and that Ruan Changxiu's son's fortune and future were far beyond Jiuli's control. Mr. Ruan is a scholar, and he would not believe it, nor would he allow others in his family to say it. But as Ruan Changxiu and his wife passed away at a young age, the people of the Ruan family really believed this rumor. Jiuli's life is poisonous, and she is born with evil spirits. Anyone who interacts with her will have bad luck. Jiuli is born with bad luck. Not long after, Mr. Ruan finally passed away due to illness and went with him. Mrs. Ruan cried so much that she hated Jiuli deeply. It was this foolish girl who caused their family to fall apart, so she ordered someone to drive Jiuli out on the same day. After all, they are the flesh and blood of the Ruan family and cannot wander on the streets. They still want face. Early on, the people of the Ruan family, especially the Wang and Li families, quickly opened a unique courtyard. Jiuli has been living alone for a long time. Often it's like having one meal before the next. Either it's grabbing the food from the children in the village, or going up the mountain to eat wild fruits, most of which are leftover meals from the Nguyen family. Just like this, I starved and ate for several years. It's almost time to get married, and the people of the Ruan family can't hold back anymore. They are asking people everywhere to find connections and want to marry Jiuli out. Baldness, lameness, pockmarks, and one eye are all okay, even age is not a concern. As long as someone marries Jiuli. Finally, a bald one-eyed man agreed to marry Jiuli, but asked the superior farmland of the Ruan family to be used as the dowry. This is the heart-shaped flesh of the Wang and Li families, and the whole family points to these 3 superior fields for living. If you can't bear to part with these 3 superior fields, you'll end up losing money. For the sake of these 3 superior fields, Wang and Li conspired to let Sang Ma end up with the little fool's life on a deserted night. Sizzle, Jiuli felt a severe pain in the back of her head. She touched it with her right hand, which was sticky and covered in blood. Originally, they injured her in the head. The wound was not small, and there was a lot of bleeding. We need to stop the bleeding quickly. She got out of bed and stood up straight. With a bang, a black, small bag-like object fell off my body. Jiuli was puzzled and lowered her head to pick it up. Is this brought from a past life? The blood on the head dripped onto the black bag. The black bag was infected with blood. An incredible scene happened. A dazzling white light came from the black bag, and a yellowed book spun inside, like a huge electric current flowing through her body. Jiuli felt a wave of dizziness and passed out. I am the ancient Fuxi clan and have been waiting for my descendants here. In the future, I will pass it on to you. It will benefit the people and bring medicine to the world. Every time you save someone, this book will open a page, and your medical skills and martial arts will take you to the next level. Be careful not to. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Black Packet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Black Packet. In a daze, Julie seemed to feel a strong electric current flowing into her body, instantly gaining a lot of medical knowledge. With so much stuff pouring into her mind, she had a splitting headache. In just a few seconds, she controlled herself. Julie opened the black bag, and the glowing book was gone. In her mind, only the 3 words, Fushi Jing, flashed with golden light. Like another distant territory in her mind. When she perceives that book, it automatically turns pages. Flipping at a steady and slow pace, Julie can clearly see the handwriting on it. Some characters are tedious strokes that Julie doesn't recognize, but whenever Julie pauses, there will be explanations later. So even ancient books can be read effortlessly by Julie. Quickly, the book was roughly finished. This book is left behind by Fushi in ancient times, and includes 2 parts of secret scriptures. Medical skills and martial arts. Medical skills include massage, acupuncture and moxibustion, and simple surgical treatment. Martial arts, also known as Fushi divine arts and methods of defending against enemies, and so on. Whether it's medical skills or martial arts, Julie was interested in them in her past life and was professional. She couldn't put down this book and really wanted to see it. There is a feeling of regret for meeting too late. Unfortunately, that book always flashed back and forth in her mind. Despite her efforts to search and remember all the content, she could only see the first 10 pages. I can't see any other parts. The remaining pages can only be slowly opened when one's cultivation level reaches a certain level or the number of saved lives is sufficient. Sizzling. The wound hurt again, and Julie raised her hand to touch her head. The wound was deep enough, so big that if not disinfected in time, the wound would most likely be infected. In ancient times, where do we get those disinfectants? Just after pounding the drum, Julie felt another severe pain in her wound, causing her to faint from the pain. When she woke up, the black bag on the table was slightly open. This black bag was not very big, very old, as if it had been used for many years and then kicked hard, uneven, and the skin was drooping in many places. Those who don't know think it was picked up from that trash can. It was this bag that gave Julie a strange sense of familiarity. When she opened her bag and saw the medicine inside, she was immediately taken aback. No, right. Inside is her once transparent medicine box. There is the medicine she needs inside. Julie pinched herself hard and felt a lot of pain. Wasn't it a dream? The medicine box is real, and the medicine inside is also real. Julie remembered that when she was in the ancient tomb, she had a small medicine box with her, which was contained in a black bag. But that black bag is also too torn. This small medicine box is different from other small medicine boxes, especially the transparent one, as it is difficult to hide some good medicine inside. Julie wanted to throw it away a few times. At this moment, a myriad of warm feelings surged in my heart, and I couldn't help but hold on to the small medicine box and say, "Dear baby, my sister will never leave you again. I will take good care of you." Julie painfully wiped the small medicine box with her own clothes. Although there were some bumps on the outside, the contents inside were not damaged at all. She found some anti-inflammatory drugs and iodine from inside, and also took out some gauze. Disinfect the wound and wrap it again. Afterwards, I took 2 more anti-inflammatory pills. Due to the length of the hair, even when wrapped, it cannot be seen from the outside. After treating her wound, Julie felt a bit hungry, but before eating, she needed to change her clothes that had already turned sour. She took off her tattered clothes and placed them on a broken stool. A cold wind blew in from the broken window, causing Julie to shiver uncontrollably. She deftly rummaged through the boxes and cabinets, finding a few dry clothes to put on, not knowing when the clothes had been stuffed into a corner. But what Julie is certain of is that these clothes have not been washed since she started wearing them. A strong musty smell hit, and Julie couldn't help but sneeze a few times. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Riot. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 3 Riot. Julie shrank her arms and stood in her own yard. It sounded like a yard, but in fact, it was a small open space surrounded by a fence, and it was located in a remote area. There are 3 thatched cottages in the middle of this empty space, including the main hall house, the east house, and the west house, along with a small kitchen. Each dilapidated door has varying degrees of holes. One is in disrepair for a long time, and the other is that this little fool never uses his hands to enter the door and always kicks it open. The front and back yards are both open spaces. The open space in the front yard is cluttered with some daily necessities, such as buckets, water tanks, shovels, and poles. These things obviously haven't been used for a long time, except for the traces of soil and the dust stuck on them. The wind and sand cover is half a finger thick. If taken up, cleaning will take a long time. The Artemisia annua on the open space in the backyard is several feet tall. Although it withers and withers, it grows in an orderly manner. There was no stampede or damage. No one had cleaned up for a long time, or rather no one had stepped into this place. Where is home? In my past life, my own closet was bigger than this. This tragic journey in the small kitchen to the west, there are all the pots and stoves, but it's obviously been a long time since they were cleaned up. Dried branches, rotten leaves, and rusty pots, shovels, and spoons were scattered on the ground in all directions. The small kitchen was filled with food, without even a space for inserting feet. The food piled up in the corner was messy, with red and green fur, emitting a damp and moldy smell. Julie used her feet to vigorously pull and scrape, finally finding some gaps and barely standing firm in the kitchen. On the stove, there are scattered pieces of sweet potatoes, some of which are dry and the soil on them is already very dry. Fortunately, there was no hair growth and there was not too much damage. Fortunately, it was placed on the stove. This is the only thing at home that can be used as food. Julie covered her mouth and sneezed. The mold here is very strong, and she has a slight throat allergy. She picked up a stick from the ground and quickly pulled it a few times, creating some gaps in the crowded kitchen. She went to the backyard to get some thatch and branches, started a fire, and put a few sweet potatoes into the fire, bustling with excitement. A delicious breakfast is here. Sweet potatoes emit a faint aroma, even with a hint of soil. For Julie, it is already very strong because she is too hungry. The fragrant sweet potato flavor, peeling off the burnt yellow skin, reveals the red flesh of the sweet potato. Julie licked her tongue and took a hard bite. Sweet, sticky, slightly soft, with a sweet and delicate taste. Especially the steaming white smoke. Julie ate while leaving her mouth bare. A few sweet potatoes fell into her stomach, and Julie felt a sense of strength and warmth all over her body. She touched her stomach and swallowed the last bite of sweet potatoes, feeling like she had eaten enough. While she was enjoying the delicious sweet potato, she suddenly heard a clang sound. The sound was loud, and she felt her room shaking, and then the stove in the kitchen also trembled. Julie was shocked. Just heard someone shouting outside the door, "Little fool." Julie turned her head and looked out through the crack in the door panel. A group of playful children were standing outside, shouting and smashing stones at her door. It seems that Julie was bullied a lot before. Julie stood up, walked out of the kitchen, and strode out. Fresh air belonging to this world rushed in, and Julie took a deep breath and stretched lazily. Little fool, stretch lazily, open your eyes, and pee in bubbles. Cough. Julie coughed lightly and walked a few steps to the door, then opened it. Before she could see the children outside the door clearly, she only heard a few sounds of bang, bang, and bang. At the moment she opened the door, the stones in the children's hands rushed towards her and hit her with a brush. Julie quickly dodged and a few stones hit the door heavily, then fell to the ground and rolled out far away. There is a big mark on the door. Julie was a bit angry and shouted at them, "Don't smash it." Little did they know that it was okay, but when they said it, the children became even crazier. They ran and smashed while shouting excitedly. It's in their chaotic formation. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, followed by a loud bang. Someone cried. The children were stunned in a daze, holding up the stones in their hands for a long time without responding. Who cried? Dan's head is broken. I don't know who called out, but Julie followed the crying and saw that a child's head had been smashed. The child behind him hit him heavily with a stone. The stone falls to the ground, and there is still blood on the tip of the stone. The little fool hit someone. I don't know who said the first sentence. The children behind also began to coax. The little fool hit someone. The little fool hit someone. The children started cheering and running, especially the one that hit the person, who had already run without a trace. Julie looked at everything in shock, spreading her hands and shaking her head helplessly. Just now, she didn't even step out of the threshold. Can we still do this? She stepped out of the door and walked a few steps to the child named Dan. She looked at the bleeding spot on his head and touched it with her hand, estimating the wound. Afterwards, he bent down to pick up the stones on the ground. Sure enough, there is a sharp edge on the stone, and it is still stained with blood. The wound is quite deep. Just as Julie was caressing his wound with one hand and examining the bloody stone with the other, a chaotic sound could be heard not far away. Auntie, it was the little fool who smashed the second egg, and her head was bleeding. It was the little fool who smashed it. It's her. The children chattered and arrived in front of Julie. Julie shook her head and explained, "It's not me, I didn't smash 2 eggs." The middle-aged couple who hurriedly arrived were very angry, pointing at Julie's head with a fierce expression and saying, "You said it's not you. All the evidence is there, what else can be said? You little fool." Julie lowered her head and looked at the bloody stone in her hand, quickly throwing it to the ground. "Me, I don't have it, Auntie." Julie also learned to call her by the children, but she didn't know that this couple wouldn't give up and said, "It was you who smashed it. What should you do?" Julie paused for a moment and stuttered, "Auntie, why don't I help wrap the second egg bun?" After saying it, she didn't forget to emphasize, "I used to be a doctor." The couple laughed heartily at that time, almost bending down with laughter. In the blink of an eye, I saw the blood gurgling from Erden's head, and instantly stopped laughing. I said, "You go home and give it to your father, and wrap it for your mother." Knowing that Julie has no father or mother, this must be cursing her. Someone touched the angry woman and then gave a gesturing look. Following her gaze, a chubby woman carrying a basket seemed to be hiding in a small forest not far away. "The eldest lady of the Rouen family," someone muttered softly. The woman immediately spoke up, aimed at the sneaky figure, and cursed loudly, "Your people from the Rouen family have smashed the head of our second egg. If you don't have a saying, we have nothing to do with you. Starting today, our whole family will come to your house for dinner." Julie quickly searched for this figure from her memory. It was Wang, the eldest aunt of the Rouen family. She probably saw the scene just now and quickly fled. Upon hearing the shouting and cursing, the figure paused for a moment, as if walking faster. "I can avoid the first day of junior high school, but I can't avoid the 15th. The woman's voice was even louder, afraid that the eldest lady wouldn't hear her. The figure in the forest finally came to a stop. "If we don't give an explanation, we'll go to your doorstep every day and curse." The figure in the forest probably felt like it couldn't escape and had to turn around and walk towards this side. This time we walked very slowly, a few meters away, and we roughly embarked on the momentum of the long march. Finally arrived at the entrance of Julie, standing there, but still far from the crowd. "I'm sorry, Erden. Since the day she moved out of our Rouen family, Julie has not been a member of our Rouen family. Whatever she does, you can do whatever you want. You can take her pots, bowls, ladles, and spoons as you please. If it's not enough, we won't care if the house is demolished. After speaking, the old lady hurriedly left. Standing there, Julie didn't even look up. It seems like we've completely cut each other. Oh no, we've already cut each other. Since then, when they moved to this small courtyard, they actually paid little attention to her. A group of people rushed to Julie's yard, coaxing her, and then really carried her iron pot out. Some even took her iron bucket and spoon. Anything that can be taken is taken out and carried away. Julie hooked her lips and didn't chase them. She strode towards the Rouen family. In the afternoon, someone saw Julie walking through the village carrying a pot, saying it was carried by the Rouen family. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Beating. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Beating. Julie put down the stove and started practicing martial arts. The attraction of that Fushi Sutra is too great, and she only hopes to absorb everything she sees in her mind. Even if it's only 10 pages, she has to devote herself to studying. She carefully studied the medical part. Whether it was acupuncture and moxibustion to find acupoints, or massage and massage, she used her own body to experiment in several places. Even the surgery part, she filtered it in her mind and planned to experiment with small animals when she had the opportunity. She also devoted herself to studying the martial arts section, which was easy and effortless to learn. She combined her previous life's efforts and integrated the two parts into it. Not only the fusion of theories, she personally practiced every action. In the open backyard, she felt like an agile eagle spreading its wings and flying, sometimes like a hungry tiger descending the mountain, pouncing on delicious prey, and sometimes like a snake circling around. From the ground to the tree, from the tree to the ground, from the inside to the outside of the wall, and from the outside to the inside of the wall. Every movement is skillfully applied and understood. Just like this, I wasted sleep and forgot to eat, walking through the stars and moon without stopping day and night, until the 10 pages that appeared in my mind were fully rehearsed a few times and I was able to master them all. She just stopped. Brilliant sunlight pierced through the gaps between the leaves, and through the morning mist, strands of light scattered throughout the small courtyard, revealing mottled shadows on the ground. Julie extended her hands, took a deep breath, fully enjoyed it, embraced the sunshine, and embraced the world. Aunt sang, "Why are you going? I haven't seen Julie for a few days. Our eldest lady asked me to come and take a look, while also bringing her some food. Your Rouen family is really kind to Julie." The sound of two people communicating with each other came from outside the door, and Julie quickly retrieved this character from the original owner's memory. This was the Sang-ma of the Rouen family, who was the intimate maid brought into the mansion by the eldest Lady Wang. The Wang family used to be wealthy, but gradually fell into decline. This Sang-ma followed her from the Wang family to the Rouen family, taking care of the eldest lady from beginning to end. The children of the Rouen family were all raised by her and contributed to the Rouen family. Speaking in the Nguyen family carries weight, and their status is comparable to that of the second wife of the Nguyen family. When the original owner Julie was assassinated that night, Sang Mama put in a lot of effort. She came to deliver food to her today. The weasel pays New Year's greetings to the chicken. Julie twitched her lips and walked a few steps to the main entrance, opening it. The woman who came was around 40 years old. Although there were many patches on her clothes, she was dressed neatly, making her look like a capable person. There is a basket hanging in my arm, covered with blue cloth, making it difficult to see what is inside. Julie's sudden appearance startled Sang Ma. She habitually took a step back, opened her eyes wide, and said, "How did you come out?" In fact, her eyes were more filled with fear and doubt. That night, they covered her to death in bed and watched her die before leaving. In order to be afraid that she wouldn't die, they even deliberately smashed a hole in her head. Even if she wasn't covered to death, her head would bleed, and if it wasn't discovered for a long time, she wouldn't be able to live. But she appeared in front of her lively. A few days ago, there were rumors about her causing trouble. She has never died, and if she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would never have believed it. That day, when Julie went to Ruan's house to carry the pot, Sang's mother went to the market to buy things. The eldest lady flashed due to her nervousness, it was just a pot and some furniture items. She didn't need to make trouble for her. Didn't she just smash someone else's child's head? So, she didn't dare to step forward. Erin Yangzi went down to work and didn't know about it. There were other people at home who tried to stop it a bit, but it was also unsuccessful. Julie smoothly carried out a large pot and a small pot from the Ruan family, as well as the daily necessities she needed. For example, knives, cutting boards, and so on, they were all taken out. Just carry it all the way to your own home. These past few days, while Julie is practicing martial arts, the Ruan family has been discussing her topic. Because she carried away the pot, everyone had several dry meals, especially Mrs. Ruan, whose last two front teeth were knocked out. At that time, she was angry at the dinner table and said, "From now on, this Julie will never be allowed to step into the door of this house. This is simply a bereaved star. Whoever mentions her in front of me again will kill me. Whether she dies or lives has nothing to do with us." Mrs. Ruan spoke up, saying that Julie was completely kicked out of the Ruan family. For the sake of the deceased three-bedroom couple, Mrs. Ruan asked Mrs. Sang to come and draw the line for the last time. "I just don't recognize Julie anymore. It can be considered a ritual." Julie saw her smile and said, "This is my home. I can go out whenever I want, and come in whenever I want. What are you afraid of?" Sang's mother choked for a moment, of course she was feeling guilty. Sang Ma looked at Julie again. The person is still the same, yet so unfamiliar, it seems like something is different. Before, I was dull and wooden, with my eyes fixed on people. Now there is a spiritual light in my eyes, even though my clothes are torn and tattered, and there is even a smell of mold and urine smell, there is still an invisibly captivating aura. Sang Ma rubbed her eyes a little, how could a fool change? She mustered up the courage to lift her chin and said, "I'm here to tell you today that you caused trouble and took away a few pots of the Ruan family, causing the old lady to fall seriously ill. Your affairs will have nothing to do with the Ruan family in the future. If you cause trouble again, don't let them go find the Ruan family. It's all your own fault." Julie smiled faintly and nodded. Sang's mother glanced at her and secretly exclaimed, "You're a fool, just a few words will make you hesitate." Her eyes rolled and she immediately thought to herself, "You took 2 pots from the Ruan family. You can't eat alone, can you? I'll take a big one today. I'll give you a small one." Julie blocked in front of her. The smell of urine in the yard made Sang Ma feel that she had stayed long enough to save face for the deceased 3-bedroom couple. "Immediately say, get out of here. What if you don't dodge?" Julie blocked her tightly, unable to take a step forward. Sang Ma didn't take her seriously at all. When she met her before, she hit her a lot. He raised his hand and hit Julie's left face. Julie's body flickered and her left foot hooked. Sang Mama lay steadily on the ground with a basket and a dog nibbling on it. In his past life, Julie used this kind of stumbling technique countless times when carrying out missions, but it was all used to deal with bad people. Today is just for dealing with Sang Mama. Sang's mother looked at her incredulously, seriously suspecting that her eyes were blurred. Julie embraced her with both hands and lazily leaned against the door, staring at her with a smile, as if saying, "I'll trip you, or else you'll trip me too." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Escape. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Escape. Sang Mama used to deal with Julie a lot, always as an elder, always slapping her face. Regardless of who the children of the Ruan family are, if they argue with Julie, it must be Julie who is wrong. Julie is always beaten. This is the first time that Sang Ma has been beaten like today, and her appearance is quite embarrassing. Coincidentally, a few pedestrians passed by the door of Jiuli. She immediately started splashing. Shaking his body and crying on the ground, he opened his throat and was about to curse. "You inhumane thing, I'll give you food, how could you possibly leave me on the ground? I've been with the Ruan family for a lifetime, and all the other children in the Ruan family are respectful to me. Why are you just an outsider? My poor third lady, how could you have such a monster that we can't even enter if we want to love her?" A few passers-by released the guy in their hands and quickly came over to persuade. "She, Aunt Sang, you must not have the same view as her. We all see your kindness to the Ruan family. Aunt Sang, get up quickly. We need to argue with fools. Aren't we also fools?" Seeing someone come to mediate, Sang Ma's voice instantly changed and she began to cry softly, saying, "I came to bring her food, but she tripped me with her foot." Jiuli looked at the basket that was thrown far away, and a few white buns inside were also exposed. Xianxia village is located in a remote area, and wheat cannot grow at all. White steamed buns are even rarer, unless you go to a distant town. I believe she has just returned from town, and these few white steamed buns are for the other children of the Ruan family to eat, right? In the original owner's memory, she had seen other children eating white flour buns, but she had not tasted them yet. For a long time, she has been studying medicine and martial arts. At this time, she is really hungry and her stomach is a bit growling. Seeing the sturdy and shiny white bread, Jiuli took a few steps and bent down to pick up 4 white bread, all of which she held in her arms. Seeing these 4 white steamed buns, she was certain that they were not given to her. The 4 children of the Nguyen family who are most favored by their mothers are Nguyen Dalang, Nguyen Qilang, Nguyen Wunyang, and Nguyen Bame. The Ruan family also has a Ruan Qilang who is not favored by the Ruan family. Although he lives in the courtyard of the Nguyen family, it's like picking it up from a garbage dump. It's a bit delicious, so he avoids him and secretly eats it for those 4 children. Among the few children of the Ruan family, only Ruan Qilang and Jiuli have a good relationship. Jiuli is bullied outside, and it is Ruan Qilang who protects him. Although Ruan Qilang is a few years younger than her, he always treats her as his own sister, even if he gets beaten up, he still wants to protect Jiuli. It's a bit delicious, even if I don't eat it myself, I will secretly leave it for Jiuli. Sometimes I also steal delicious food from home to give to Jiuli. I don't know how many times I've been beaten, but every time I've been beaten, I say I'll change it and steal it again next time. Sang Ma saw Jiuli put the white bread into her arms, which she had saved up for half a year to buy. Crying immediately became even more mournful. Everyone misunderstood, thinking that she was hurt by being beaten by Jiuli. Someone also began to persuade Jiuli, saying, "Silly, please comfort your Sang mother. She has been suffering and suffering all her life in your Ruan family, which has broken her heart. She still has to think of you day and night. How could you possibly hit your Sang mother? Come and help her up." Jiuli looked at them and shook her head innocently, "She's going to hit me in the face first." Sang Ma's voice grew louder and her crying became even more mournful. She choked up and said, "Did you hear me?" She admitted. Jiuli raised her eyebrows and spread out her hand, saying, "You gave me white bread, I accept it. Can you go now?" Her voice was not loud, but there was a hint of coldness in her non-smiling eyes. Sang's mother couldn't help but tremble as she saw it. Someone picked up Sang Mama, and she stood up, picking up the basket and small flour cloth next to her. Sang Ma's scalp feels numb and she always feels something different. He walked away with a basket on his shoulder. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Widows. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Widows. Jiuli looked at the 4 attractive white flour mantou in her hand, which gave off a strong smell of wheat. She took them to her mouth several times, and reluctantly put them down again. Finally, she ate only 1. The remaining 3 were wrapped in oil paper in a dry place. She, who was slightly full, leaned on the bed and took a nap for a while. I just squinted for a while and actually dreamed. In her dream, she went up the mountain with a basket on her back to pick herbs on a sunny morning. A handsome man dressed in gorgeous clothes fell into a valley, with his life in danger at any moment. He shouted for help, and behind him were many pursuers dressed in black. On the cliff hung poisonous snakes, spitting red silk, about to fall onto him. The situation was critical. She climbed up the mountain and smoked the poisonous snakes with her own poison, then jumped into the valley. Unfortunately, the handsome man had already been taken away by the black-clothed men, leaving only a pool of black blood on the ground. She was discerning the direction of those footprints around the valley, and the footprints spread all the way to the mountaintop. They were running towards the mountaintop, and she quickly ran towards the mountaintop, chasing them all the way. She found them in a small house next to the Taoist temple on the mountaintop. She ran them away. Rescued the young man dressed in splendid attire. Unfortunately, she arrived late. Due to being poisoned by a snake and the delay of this group of people, he was on the brink of death. Julie woke up and suddenly sat up from the bed, panting heavily and sweating profusely, trying to recall this dream. This dream is so bizarre, so absurd, and he in the dream is so real. For a moment, Julie was at a loss. From the scene in the dream, it seems that there is still some time left until now. Julie still has time to prepare. Her main task now is to tidy up this home. She needs to take root here and live here. She wants to tidy up this small yard neatly. She didn't know where she found a shovel and planned to tidy the backyard first. Just turned the corner and walked to the kitchen door, she heard footsteps at the door. The footsteps were a bit dragging and repetitive, walking back and forth at her doorstep, either wanting to come in, or having something to do. Can it be that the people of the Ruan family have come to vent their anger on Sang Ma, or are they friends of the original owner? Julie was puzzled and turned back to the yard, holding a shovel in his hand, standing there like that. There is someone at the door. It's not from the Ruan family, but Chu Feng, a young widow from the west courtyard. In this Xianxia village, those mischievous children or women who like March 8th are the two people they love to bully the most. One is little fool Julie, and the other is Chu Feng. Chu Feng's husband died when she was very young, and she also had a grandmother who was sick all year round. They can be considered as a single family and do not have any particularly close family ties. There is a young uncle who seems to be joining the army outside and hasn't returned home for several years. Having and not having are almost the same. So, she became the target of everyone's bullying. The little fool Julie from the past, although she had relatives and a family, was no different. Everyone hardly mentioned her when they went out, feeling embarrassed. Julie's small courtyard is far away from them and cannot take care of her. But Chu Feng also likes to bully Julie. All her pleasure comes from Julie. She hasn't seen Julie in the past 2 days and still misses her a bit. Without Julie, she would be lonely. That night, on the night when the original owner was covered to death, her mother-in-law had a high fever. In the middle of the night, she carried her mother-in-law on her back to find a doctor. In a secluded place, she saw the sneaky figures of Sang Ma and Wan Ernyang. She entered Julie's house with a rope and spent the following days taking care of her mother-in-law. She had many bold speculations in her heart, but she didn't have time or was powerless to do so. My mother-in-law's condition stabilized, and she came out to see Julie as soon as possible. She stood at the entrance of Julie's small courtyard, looking inside with a complex heart, thinking about her toes. Seeing Julie standing in the yard with a shovel, she was startled and ran away. Julie watched her figure disappear from sight through the fence wall. When she was in danger, someone still cared about her, at least she didn't fall into trouble. Can this be considered her friend? Julie hooked her lips, feeling warm in her heart. This world is big, but the only place that belongs to her is this home. No matter how dilapidated or unbearable, this small place is her sanctuary, a place she guards well. She doesn't want much, she will take good care of what is good to her. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Qilang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Qilang Jiuli moved her wrist and arrived at the backyard. The backyard is spacious and messy, and tidying it up has many uses. She first dealt with the messy thatch, followed by dead branches and rotten leaves. She made thatch into haystacks and arranged the branches together in order, which could be used for cooking and fire. She dug another pit in the backyard and put rotten leaves inside, which can be used as fertilizer. This backyard, some of which she wants to make into a vegetable garden, has the vegetables and fruits she needs all year round. With a creak, the door opened and someone walked into the yard. The habit of being a spy in her past life was that Jiuli's hearing was several times higher than that of an average person. She could distinguish the sound of a needle falling into the water, let alone the sound of a door being pushed. Jiuli was busy in the backyard when she heard someone come in and stood up. "Sister, can I fetch water for you?" Jiuli walked a few steps from the backyard to the front yard and saw a young man standing in her own yard. She quickly searched for this young man in the original owner's memory. His name is Qilang. He is small, thin, and black. He is the youngest son of the Erfang family, and the entire Wan family sincerely cares about Jiuli as long as this Qilang. Mainly, he was also dumbfounded, without much heart and mind, full of foolishness. If the original owner was bullied, as long as Qilang heard about it, he would basically start hitting them. Whether he could or could not, he would always take action, with a bruised nose and swollen face every time. Jiuli saw the scars on his face at a glance, some of which were stained with red blood and hadn't dried yet. This injury was just present. "Qilang, where did the wound on your face come from?" Jiuli quickly walked over and approached him, staring at the scar on his face and asking. Cough. Qilang touched his face and smiled shyly, saying, "Sister, isn't this a common occurrence? I'll go and treat your inflammation." Jiuli turned around and walked a few steps towards the room to the east. Qilang scratched his head, and the girl in front of him, Jiuli, always felt something different. In the past, no matter how much he was beaten, Jiuli would not comfort him and sometimes even laugh at his face blooming. Comforting him like before, and even going into the house to get disinfectant, this is the first time in history. Perhaps Jiuli's mind lit up today, or maybe someone said such a thing and she heard it. She just repeated what others had said. Where can she have disinfectant? This is all while listening to the opera, as mentioned in the text, only those relatives of the imperial family can use it. Isn't Sister Jiuli teasing him today? Jiuli came out of the east room and took out a small black bottle in her hand, which was very special. Qilang had never seen such a bottle before. "Sister, what's wrong with you today?" Qilang was puzzled and didn't take the matter of disinfecting water to heart. He picked up the bucket and pole on one side of the kitchen and said, "Sister, I'll go fetch water for you first. Apply the medicine first." Jiuli insisted a bit. The young man is so energetic. When Jiuli walked up to her with disinfectant, Qilang was already missing with a bucket in hand. Jiuli had to turn around, return to the room, put down the disinfectant, and continue working in the backyard. After tidying up the yard, she went to the front yard to tidy it up a bit. At present, the most important thing is to tidy up the kitchen and take advantage of the good sunlight to wash the old tattered clothes and yesterday's dirty clothes. The bedding and bed need to be tidied up. There is not a drop of water in the water tank. Jiuli looked up at the sun and saw that Qilang had been out for some time. "Why haven't you come yet? That well is not far from here either." Jiuli put down the thing in her hand, clapped her hands, took a few steps out of the courtyard door, and closed the small wooden door. Strode towards the well in the middle of the village. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Getting Beaten. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Getting Beaten. There is only one well in the entire village. Usually, everyone comes to this well to pick water for drinking. Many people in the village can be met by the well, and many people chat around the well when they have nothing to do. This seems to have become a place where they often chat and check in. When Julie was approaching the well, she saw a group of people gathered there, as if something had happened. Julie thought of Qilang and let out a bad cry, accelerating her pace. When she entered the crowd, it was as she had expected. Qilang sat on the ground wet all over, kicking both buckets of water to the ground while his nose was still bleeding. When I came out, there was an injury, but now the injury is even worse. And when those people saw her, they were still cheering, "Little fool, wake up early, open your eyes, pee on bubbles." Julie quickly glanced around at the people, most of whom were teenagers, about the same age as Qilang. They are partnering to fight against one person. Qilang was knocked down to the ground, and they were still happy. Seeing Julie coming over, their faces showed a proud expression. "Little fool, why don't you come too?" Julie snorted coldly. She didn't speak, but she really moved. She took a step forward, and the teenagers around her only felt a gust of wind coming. Then Julie firmly grabbed the collars of several teenagers and collided them, as if holding a toy. They were a bit confused when they first saw this kind of Julie. Until their noses and foreheads were bleeding, Julie finally threw them heavily to the ground. A few teenagers were lying on the ground, looking at Julie with some fear. When Julie turned to look at Qilang, they were so scared that they ran away with their backs in their pants. There are only Julie and Qilang left by the well. Julie helped Qilang up and looked at the bloodstains on his face. With one hand, she pressed on his ing asterisk and shang xing acupoints, stopping his nosebleeds. She felt sorry and said, "Don't do this in the future. Look at your face, there are scars all over your face, and you won't be able to find your wife in the future." Qilang chuckled and said, "If I can't find my wife, I'll follow my sister." Julie affectionately touched his cerebellum and said, "You used to protect your sister, but in the future, your sister will protect you." At this moment, Qilang's expression was like those of the young boys just now, and he was also confused. This is the first time he has seen such a Julie sister. Even the tone of speech is different from before. Julie went to fetch 2 buckets of water and carried them forward. Qilang scratched his own head and quickly caught up, wondering, "Sister, did Erden and his team really go to your house to cause trouble a few days ago? You said you broke his head." Julie didn't answer, and Qilang continued, "Sister, I always feel like you're different." Julie turned her head and looked at the scars and purple skin on his face, knowing that he had been doing this for the past few days. "What's different?" Julie smiled and said. Qilang continued to scratch his head, looked up at Julie, looked up and down, and stuttered, "I can't say it. It seems like nothing is like it anymore." Julie just continued walking with a smile, and the pick on her shoulder trembled regularly. Qilang was even more puzzled. Did her Julie sister not know how to carry water before? He still followed closely behind, and after a long time, he replied, "Anyway, it's all my sister." Julie looked back at him with a smile on her face. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Stealing Grain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 10. Being Cursed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Being Cursed. Julie looked around but didn't see Qilang. While she was wondering, she heard a few curses coming from not far away and said, "You turtle grandson, which family do you belong to? You kept turning your elbow outward. You stole all the rice and noodles I just bought at the market today." I didn't hear anyone else talking, I just heard the sound of heavy footsteps. Julie could clearly tell that it was the footsteps of Qilang. The curse came again and continued, "She's a fool. She knows what's delicious and what's not delicious. Giving her white rice and noodles is a waste. She can't even taste pig food." I couldn't hear what Qilang was saying, but I heard his footsteps very quickly. Getting closer and closer. Jiuli took a few steps over and opened the wooden door. After a while, Qilang ran over panting heavily. Carrying 2 rice bags on my back. Sister, he called out enthusiastically as he entered the door, I'll go home and bring you the rice. Stealing it. Jiuli looked at him and asked calmly. Qilang put the rice in the hall and came out with a grin on his face, scratching his head with a somewhat silly smile. I took it out when no one saw it, he said after he finished speaking. The two of them looked at each other with a smile. You're holding back the lamb, don't come inside. The curse came again, which was the voice of Sang Mama. It was probably because she had eaten Jiuli and was still holding back the fire. She never dared to enter Jiuli's yard, and no one dared to show her face. 9 glasses are completely inaudible. When the shouting and cursing gradually faded away, the two of them laughed back and forth. Jiuli treated the wound on Qilang's face and wrapped some areas with white gauze. Don't fight anymore in the future, Jiuli said. This wound has been repaired. Qilang's mouth cracked open, revealing his white teeth. In a silly voice, he said, we should fight or we should fight. Jiuli suddenly thought of something, nodded her head, and said, wait a minute. After that, she turned around and entered the room. Qilang watched in confusion as Jiuli entered the room. After a while, watching Jiuli come out holding 3 white steamed buns, Jiuli's face was full of smiles and she said, have you ever eaten it? Qilang scratched his head and grinned as he secretly saw that Delang Qilang had eaten, but he didn't. He wanted to try it a long time ago. Jiuli took out 2 and gave them to Qilang. When Qilang wanted to give Jiuli another one, he was rejected by Jiuli and whispered, I just ate 1, it's 4. Qilang took a fierce bite of the white bread and nodded thoughtfully, saying, there should be 4 of them, only the 4 of them can eat it. Sister, how did you get it? Jiuli looked around and whispered, I took it while they were watching. Qilang was taken aback for a moment, then opened his mouth and said, snatching. Jiuli didn't speak, so he took a mouthful of white mantu. The two of them burst into laughter. 2 steamed buns with white flour. Qilang soon got ready. Jiuli looked at him and said, today, my sister will make you a delicious tsong yu bing. Would you like to try it? Sister, you can eat it yourself. I'll come back tomorrow to fetch water for you. Qilang wiped his mouth and ran out, disappearing in a flash. Jiuli went to pick water a few more times, brushed all the water tanks at home, and filled them one by one with water. The pots, bowls, ladles, and spoons in the kitchen are all polished and polished. The clothes have been washed and the bedding has also been dried. I was very busy until late at night. I sat in a tidy little room and ate my own tsong yu bing. There was no onion, no oil, but only salt cake. For Jiuli, it is already very delicious. End of this chapter.